today cover the topic of elasticity. I think the slides, the slides are already available. Can you see the screen I'm sharing? Hello, can you see the screen?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay. Before I start, is there any questions regarding the course or the assignment? Everyone okay?
Doctor, regarding the last class of demand.
Sorry, regarding what?
The price ceiling.
Uh-huh.
Why cannot the government put the price ceiling at the equilibrium?
Oh, okay. For price ceiling, if they put in at the equilibrium, then there's no point, because the equilibrium is where the price will anyway operate. Okay, so then what's the point of making the price ceiling? So usually the price ceiling, the objective is to ensure that the price goes below the equilibrium. Right, so for example, for chicken prices during holiday celebration, right? Let's say the price is 15 in the market, and during the holiday celebration during Eid, because the demand is high and the supply is low, then the sellers increase the price to 20, for example. Right, so the government can come in and they say the chicken sellers cannot set the price higher than 15, right? So they can set it below the current equilibrium to the previous equilibrium, right? So that's one of the aim of the price ceiling, right? Hopefully that answers the question. Let me just set this, I think this one. Yeah, so remember to do your assignments as well. Okay, you can start, for example, for the critical review of article, you can start immediately, and you can contact me regarding the articles that you are interested to review, right? So just you can send me a message or email with the article, and then I'll go through and see whether it is suitable for review. Okay. Is there any other thing before we start the lecture? Okay. So let me just share the slides.
Doctor, if we choose the article, we send it to you.
Yeah, you can send it. You can send it to me if you think it is if you want some other opinion whether it's suitable or not.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so you can see the slides, yeah. So for today, we'll go through the topic of elasticity. Okay, so this is a continuation of the previous topic on supply and demand, right? So when we look at supply and demand, okay, basically there is another concept that is very much related to supply and demand. So if you remember, so the the demand curve is a downward sloping, and then there is an upward sloping supply curve. So this is demand, okay, this is supply, and here is the price, this is the quantity, and this is the equilibrium, is where supply and demand meet. The price is sold here, the quantity is here, right? So there is also the issue of how elastic is the prices and the quantity that is being sold, right? So if you can, the analogy that you can probably relate to is the analogy of the rubber band, right? So if you have the rubber band, the more elastic it is, the more easy for it to change its shape, right? The less elastic it is, the less easy for us to change its shape. So similarly, there are supply and demand of certain goods that have different elasticities in terms of how it changes with regards to the price and quantity. Right? So we'll go through this concept in this class, inshallah. Right, so basically, there are a few topics that we'll go through. Okay, number one is with regards to price elasticity of demand. So this is looking at how price would affect the demand. Okay, how price would affect the quantity demanded. Okay, and then number two, we'll also go through total revenue test. Okay, so this is quite interesting because, for example, you can imagine if you are a restaurant owner, right? So if you are a restaurant owner and you want to set the price of the food that you sell, right? So there is the consideration of elasticity that can be calculated through total revenue test, right? For example, if you are selling pizza, right, and currently you are selling at 10 ringgit per slice, right? Then you are thinking of increasing the price, right? So in order to cover the cost of the pizza.
Doctor,
Right?
there is a background noise.
Sorry?
There is
Oh,
a
sorry.
background noise.
Okay. Sorry. Let me just check. Is that better? Is that okay?
Yes, now it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so um, this aspect, right? So let's say you have a pizza restaurant, okay, and you're selling one slice for 10, and you can sell 100. And because perhaps the prices or the costs are increasing, you are considering to increase the price. And let's say you consider to increase to 15. But the issue is that whether you can retain the same quantity, okay? You can retain the same quantity sold. Maybe if there is, you raise to 15, the number of pizza being sold is only 50. Right? So then you have here, basically there is a consideration of the revenue. Okay, so here 15 times 50 would be 75, 150. Sorry, is that right? Yeah. So even though you increase the price, but if you increase the price, the quantity will decrease. The quantity sold will decrease. So then you have to consider whether it is better to increase the price or to let the price remain, or maybe to only increase up to 12 or 13. Okay, so there is a consideration that is related to this, which is called the total revenue test, and this aspect of how price affects the quantity that is being demanded is basically the concept of elasticity. Okay, so we'll go through this as well, and then we'll look at what actually determines the price elasticity of demand. So these are the factors that would influence the price elasticity of demand. And then the topic 4 here, we'll look at price elasticity of supply. Okay, price elasticity of supply. So similarly, supply also has its own elasticity. Okay, how it changes in terms of the price and quantity. There's also the different factors that would influence supply. And then number 5 is cross elasticity of demand. And then finally, income elasticity of demand. So this income, for example, looks at the effects of our income towards demand. Okay, and the cross elasticity of demand is looking at the elasticity of different goods towards the quantity demanded, right? So these are the topics that we'll go through. Okay, so for topic number 1, okay, price elasticity of demand, basically it measures buyers' responsiveness to price changes, right? So like just now I mentioned, if you've been buying pizza for 10 and then suddenly the next time you go to the shop, the price have changed to 15, right? But you only bring 10, so maybe you wouldn't buy the pizza and then you would go to another place, right? So in that case, the pizza restaurant has already lost one quantity demanded, right? So this basically is the premise of elasticity, looking at how the buyers would respond to price changes, right? So the price changes can either be increasing or also it can also be decreasing as well, right? So maybe 5 instead of 15, the price decreases to 5, then the buyer would buy more. Okay, so an elastic demand, imagine the rubber band like I mentioned just now, the more elastic it is, the more sensitive it is to price changes. Okay, and basically a small change in price, okay, small change in price. So usually the symbol that is used is the triangle. Okay, when it comes representing change, right? So the small change in price would result to a large change in quantity demanded. Okay, for an inelastic demand, okay, these are basically goods that are not sensitive to price changes, insensitive to price changes. So the changes in price result to small changes in quantity demanded. Okay, so there is a calculation for calculating the price elasticity of demand. Okay, basically the formula is the percentage change in quantity demanded, okay, over the percentage change in price. Okay, so we'll have, I think, a few calculations later on. Okay, so this is basically the elasticity of demand formula. Okay, but there's also a more accurate calculation. Okay, you can use that formula, but the more accurate calculation is using this midpoint formula. Okay, so I would recommend, if you want to calculate price elasticity of demand, elasticity generally, you can use the midpoint formula. Okay, so this is more consistent, especially when it comes to when you want to compare. Okay, so the formula basically looks at change in quantity over the sum of quantities over 2, okay, and then change in price over the sum of prices over 2, and then the result from this divide with this. Okay, so you can get the measurement. Okay, so basically if you use the midpoint formula, it's much easier to compare. Okay, because for example here, yeah, if you can compare, right, if there is a $1 price reduction from a $1,000 car, okay, and as compared to $1 change for $2 Coke, right? So this is this is a 50% reduction, and this is how much, 0.001%. Okay, so although the change is the same in terms of the number, $1, but because when we look at the percentage, it's actually different, right? So this is one way to compare. You can use the percentage, but it's easier if you use the formula. Then you can see the comparison much better. Okay, so basically when you I have the calculation. Okay, I have the calculations anyway. Okay. So when you calculate using the formula, okay, the results that you get will be either if it's more than 1, okay, if you get the number more than 1, then you can conclude that the demand is elastic. If it's similar to 1, then it's unit elastic, and if it's less than 1, then it is inelastic. Okay, and there are some extreme cases where the elasticity of demand is 0, so this is perfectly inelastic, and elasticity of demand is infinity, so this is perfectly elastic. Okay, so we'll look at the extreme cases. Okay, so the extreme cases in this case, so this is an example of a perfectly inelastic demand. So meaning to say that no matter what price, no matter if you look at the price, the quantity demanded doesn't change. Right? So for example, if it is being sold at 1 here, the quantity is 10, for example. And then if it's sold at 2 or 3 or even 100, the quantity doesn't change. So the price, even though the price changes, the quantity demanded doesn't change. So in this case, the price elasticity of demand for this product is perfectly inelastic. So it doesn't change. So you imagine a rubber band that doesn't change at all, no matter what the force has been put onto it, right? So this is an extreme case. Okay, so if you calculate it using the formula, you will get basically elasticity of demand of 0. Okay, that's the price. Okay, so one example of a perfectly inelastic demand is for control medication, for example, that are essential to ensure the livelihood of the patient, right? So for example, if there is a cancer drug, okay, and it is controlled in terms of who can get it, right? So the government controls, but then the government sets the price, right? So if you really need the cancer drug to treat your cancer, no matter what the price is set, you would still buy, okay, because that is very much essential to your life. Okay, so that is just an example of perfectly inelastic demand. Okay, okay, so I wanted to do discussion, but it's okay. I'll just try to explain, right? So if you look at this question, right, what is your demand for water? Right, so basically, if you look at water, it is very much essential. Okay. However, when it is in abundance, when you can easily access it, right, the elasticity of demand changes. Okay, when there's a lot of water, so situation A, when there's a lot of water, your demand for it may be elastic. Okay, so depending on if the prices go up, maybe then you would try to reduce your water consumption. If the prices go down, you would increase your water consumption, right? But in situation B, when let's say water is scarce and you are stranded in a desert, okay, basically if you are without water for 2 days, for example, and you're in the desert, and someone offers you, I can give you a bottle of water but you have to pay me 1 million. Okay, and you have 1 million one way or another, and then you say I will pay. Okay, so in this case, your demand for water will be inelastic. Okay, meaning to say no matter what the price is set, if let's say I offer 1,000, you would pay. I offer one bottle for 10,000, you still pay. Right? So no matter what is the price, you would pay for the water. So in that case, that demand is inelastic demand. Okay, so it doesn't matter what the price is, it will still be the same. You will still want the water. Okay, so at different situations, there will be also different elasticities. Okay, so you can, if there is a number that we set, you can basically calculate, okay, the elasticity based on your demand in these different situations. Okay, so that maybe the second case here, B here, is also the example of a extreme inelastic demand. Okay, where the elasticity of demand is also 0. Okay, so another extreme case is the perfectly elastic demand. Okay, so perfectly elastic demand is when the price is set at a certain point. Okay, there can be different quantities that is being supplied. Okay, so this of course is really hard to find this situation, but it's just an illustration of something that can maybe happen. Okay, so if let's say you set a price on a certain thing, you cannot have a certainty in terms of what is actually the quantity that is being sold in the market, right? So the analogy I think in the textbook is if usually this happens in a perfectly competitive industry. Okay, so whereby the suppliers can easily produce it and offer it in the market, and they can easily change the quantity that is being supplied in the market, right? So this is the other extreme case, right? But of course, most goods, okay, would be in between, so it would be around, okay, the shapes of the demand curve will be have different slopes. Okay, but it's rare, it's very rare to find perfectly elastic or perfectly inelastic demand. Okay, so actually we don't have the calculation for that. Then so the midpoint formula, I think I'll try to find it in a while, but we'll move to the total revenue test first. Okay, so one way to judge whether demand is elastic or inelastic is using this formula. Okay, so the formula is basically calculate the price times the quantity and you will get the revenue, right? So you imagine again, you are a restaurant owner, you set a price of the pizza that you want to sell, and you can calculate how much revenue you get by the amount of pizza that is being sold, right? So this is the total revenue. So when you make the price change, you then calculate the revenue again. So you have the revenue before price change and revenue after price change. Okay, so when you compare, okay, these two, okay, situation number one, situation number two, okay, if the price and total revenue move in the same direction, okay, meaning to say that when price increase, total revenue increase. When price goes down, total revenue goes down. If it moves in the same direction, then this is an inelastic demand. Okay, if it moves in the opposite direction, price increase, so total revenue decrease, price decrease, total revenue increase. Okay, this is basically elastic demand. Okay, So one example, yeah, if you are an owner of a restaurant, okay, and you set a price of coffee for $2, okay, and you can sell the quantity, so the price is 2 and then quantity is 10. So your total revenue is basically PQ, which is 2 times 10, so you get total revenue of 20. Okay, so now let's say you want to increase the price, so you increase the price to let's put it here, $3, and then you look at the quantity actually reduced to 7. Okay, so the total revenue is basically 3 times 7 equals to 21, right? So now, even though the price has increased, total revenue has also increased. So here it is basically inelastic because it moves in the same direction, meaning to say that the change in price doesn't affect much in terms of the quantity. Okay? The quantity is not very much affected. It's quite inelastic as compared to the change in price. Okay, so this is an example of inelastic. Okay, because looking at the revenue, it increases. But if, for example, instead of quantity reducing to 6, now reducing to 7, now let's say the quantity reduces to 6. The total revenue is therefore 3 times 6 equals to 18. Okay, so in this case, the price increase causes total revenue to decrease. Okay, because it's compared to this figure. Okay, so the total revenue decrease shows that actually customers are elastic and they are responsive to the price changes. Right, so depending on these figures, we don't know. You can conclude whether the customers are the price elasticity of demand are elastic or inelastic. So in the case of the red one here, okay, in the case of the red one here, then you can justify actually this is a good decision if I increase. If I increase the price, I can actually increase the revenue by $1, for example. But if I increase the price and the revenue actually goes down, then it's much better to remain to sell the coffee for $2. Okay, so that is the consideration that you have to make. Okay, yeah, so you can look at the example here, right? Let's say the coffee just now, you put on a chart, right? So you can put the total revenue on a chart. You decide that the price is true and you can sell for $10. Okay, and then let's say now instead of increasing the price, you decrease the price of coffee. Okay, so you decrease the price of coffee to $1. Okay, so when it was $2, you managed to sell 10. Okay, quantity 10. When it's $1, you actually managed to sell 40. Okay, so now you actually see the quantity, right? So at the blue area, actually the total revenue has increased, right? The total revenue here has increased from 20 to 40, right? So because this is price decrease causes total revenue to increase. So this is actually elastic demand. Okay, so elastic demand can be in your favor as well. So in this case, we look here, right? For this elastic demand, if it price increases, reduces the total revenue, but price decrease may increase the total revenue. So you have to consider this situation as well. right? So based on this, it's much profitable if you reduce the price in order to increase the quantity that is being sold, right? So another way is maybe if we look at if there is a inelastic demand, okay, in this case the price is 4, okay, you set the price to 4 and the quantity that is being sold is 10, okay, and let's say you think that by reducing the price actually you can get more total revenue, okay, let's say now you decide I'll reduce it to 1.5 for example, okay, and in actual fact the quantity that you sell is 25, okay, so here you get 40 total revenue, but here you get 25 is around 33, 34, okay, so in this case because the demand is inelastic, okay, the quantity that changes is not does not affect much in terms of the total revenue, and therefore the total revenue that you get is actually much less than your initial pricing, okay. So it depends on basically whether customers would respond to the price changes that you set, right? The more responsive, then the more changes would be affected towards your total revenue, okay. So if we look at another way of looking at total revenue in the graph is looking at here, okay, the total revenue for a unit elastic demand. So if you look at the blue and yellow areas is actually the same, okay, so both areas will result to 30 and 30, okay. So in this case it is considered to be unit elastic, where the price elasticity of demand is 1, okay. Okay, so another example here, we'll try to see the price elasticity of demand when it comes to movie tickets, okay, and we see with at different situations there are different elasticities, okay. So let's say based on the price ticket here, okay, for $8 the movie that the tickets that can be sold is 1,000. For $7 2,000. For $6 3,000, okay, and so on so forth, okay. So if you look at the if you calculate the total revenue, okay, the total revenue, you can see that the total revenue is 8,000, okay, and if you look at the comparison, right, so in this first case the price is 8 and the quantity is 1,000. In the second case 7, quantity is 2,000, okay, total revenue 8,000, here is 14,000, okay, so the price decrease. So in this situation when price decrease, total revenue increase, so you know that this is elastic, okay. Another way is calculating it through the midpoint formula just now. We go back to midpoint formula, okay, change in quantity over the sum of quantities and then divide by change in price over the sum of prices over 2, okay. So if you follow that formula, okay, change in quantity over sum quantity over 2 divide by change in price over sum of price over 2, okay. So this is the midpoint formula. So let's take this situation for example, okay. So if we use that formula, okay, so basically the quantity change okay, quantity change is 2 minus 1, okay, over sum of quantity 2 plus 1 over divide by 2. Okay, so here you get 1 over 1.5. So this is for the first one here. Okay, you get 1 over 1.5. Okay, so and then for the second one, the price change is 8 minus 7 over sum 8 plus 7 over 2. Okay, and basically you get 1 over 7.5. Okay, so this is the second part. So in order to get the elasticity coefficient, okay, so you basically divide 1 over 1.5 divide by 1 over 7.5. Okay, so when you calculate this, this should result to this. Let me just check. Yeah, so you get the elasticity coefficient. Okay, using the midpoint formula. And the elasticity coefficient basically says that if the ED is higher than 1, then it is elastic. If ED lower than 1, then it is inelastic. And if it's equal to 1, then it is unit elastic. Okay, so usually in some final exams, this is something that you need to know, okay, because it will be asked. You will be asked to calculate the elasticity coefficient, or to know whether the good is elastic or not, right? So but here basically you can see that at different prices, okay, there are different quantities that are being sold, and basically the elasticity changes as the price changes. Okay, so here until price 5, it is elastic. Okay, so if you look at the total revenue, when the price of tickets is reduced, okay, from 8 to 7, total revenue increase, and then 7 to 6, total revenue increase, 6 to 5, total revenue increase, and then 5 to 4, it doesn't change. Okay, so 4 to 3, it actually reduces. 3 to 2 reduces some more, and 2 to 1, it reduces furthermore. Okay, so as a, let's say you are a owner of the movie cinema, okay, so then you have to decide what is actually the best price that you can set, right, to get the most maximum revenue that you can get, right? So you can experiment on the price changes, right? So but if you look at the data, basically you would then settle the price of the ticket to either 5 or 4. Okay, so you can choose either 5 or 4 in order to get the best revenue, right? So if you go further down, then you would make some losses, right? But if you sell too high, like at 8, you only get 8,000. So you have to decide what is actually the best price for your product, right? So similarly in the real world as well, when you, for example, if you produce something, you have to decide what is actually the best price for that product. And one factor that you can consider is whether it is elastic or inelastic. So you can arrive to the best total revenue. Okay, so if you plot the total revenue and the price, okay, basically there will be a point where the total revenue is at the maximum. Okay, so this is where usually as a producer, this is where you should set your prices. Okay, so it is either at 5 or 4. Okay, yeah, so basically during the early parts from A to D, the price elasticity of demand is elastic. From D to E, it is unit elastic, and then finally at E to H, it is inelastic. Okay, so at different situations, the elasticity may change. Okay, so when we look at, yeah, so this table basically summarizes the price elasticity of demand. Okay, so you can either calculate elasticity through coefficients, through the formula just now, or through the total revenue test. Okay, so this is something that you must be aware of, and I think depending um, on the semester, maybe it will come out during the final exam as well. Okay, so what causes all these elasticities? Okay, all these different numbers and different situations. Okay, there are basically different determinants or the different factors that cause this. Okay, so one major factor is the substitutability. Okay, meaning to say that whether the customer can substitute the goods that they have been buying for another good. Okay, so for example, uh, if you are the only person that sells food in that area, right, and there's no other alternative, there's no substitute, so no matter what the price is, people will still come and buy from you. Okay, but let's say for example, you've been opening the pizza restaurant and you are the only pizza restaurant there, so if people want pizza, they have to buy from you. Okay, but so you can then increase the price and people will still buy from you. Okay, but then suddenly there's another pizza restaurant that opens, and because you've increased your price, now the customers run away and go to another place. Okay, so basically if there's more substitute, the more elastic is the demand, the more people can move away or they can change easily. Okay, like the rubber band that is elastic, they can also change easily in terms of the shape. Okay, for elasticity of demand, they can change easily in terms of the decision to buy from you or not. Okay, so that's factor number one. The second factor is how much is actually people spending from their proportion of income for the good. Okay, so basically the higher the proportion of income, the more demand, the demand is more elastic. So for example, if uh, the item that is being sold is 50% of the average income. Okay, for example, in terms of uh, car. Okay, so maybe for the car, the person has to spend 50% of his income to buy to pay the monthly payments for the car. Okay, for let's say his income is 10,000 and he pays 5,000 monthly for the car. So what happens is that he can have if it's very high in terms of this proportion, then he would then survey more, and he would easily um, he would try to change if there is a change in the proportion of income of spending. Okay, so if the higher it is to the income, then the higher it is likely to change. But if it's only like, let's say 1% of income, okay, and then the price increase to from the original, and now he has to spend 2% of income. But because it's very small percentage, he doesn't change his demand. He still buys it, okay, because it's just a very small fraction. Okay, so depending on the proportion, basically the higher the proportion, the more demand is elastic for the good. Okay, and then factor number 3, if you compare the type of item, type of good, okay, either it is a luxury or is it a necessity. So necessities, for example, if you need water, right? So no matter what, you still pay for it, for water. So in that case, it is inelastic. But for luxuries, if the price is high, then you wouldn't buy it. But if the price goes down from 50%, then there will be more demand. People will be rushing to buy it. So imagine if you go to a Louis Vuitton boutique, right? So if the price of the handbag is, let's say, 10,000, okay, so no one would buy it, okay, or maybe a very small portion would buy it. But then if they had a 50% sale, it's still expensive, but because of the sale, there would be, let's say here the quantity is maybe only 10 people would buy it, but because of the sale, now the quantity that's being sold is 50. So here you can see the change in situation A to situation B. Because of the sale, it would be more elastic. Okay, but for water, for necessities, okay, the quantity doesn't change much. Okay, so if let's say 1 gallon of water is being sold for $1, okay, but now the price increased to 10. Okay, people wouldn't change much in terms of how much they consume the water. So maybe it will only reduce to 0.9 in terms of the quantity that is being bought. So in that sense, it is inelastic. Okay, and then the fourth factor is time. Okay, so the more time that is available, the more the demand is more elastic. So the analogy is that is being used, I think, in the textbook, is if you go Christmas shopping. Okay, so usually if you go Christmas shopping last minute to buy presents, right? So people buy presents for other people. So if you go last minute and tomorrow you have to give your present immediately, right? You don't, no matter what the price is, you will still buy it. Okay, but if you have more time, let's say Christmas is 1 or 2 weeks away. So what you'll do is you'll survey first. Okay, so in that case, the demand that you have for that good is more elastic. Okay, so the more time that you have, the more elastic it is. But if you have very little time, so you just, okay, I have to buy something for my children, for example, and I'm on my way back home, and this is the only shop that's open. So no matter what the price is, I have to buy it. Okay, so because of the limited time, the demand is inelastic. So I wouldn't change my demand. Okay, so this is the fourth factor. Okay, but there are other factors, but these are the four main factors that would determine the price elasticity of demand. Okay, so if you look at the different products or services, the different goods and services, okay, there are different price elasticity of demand. Okay, so for example, the demand for, okay, so you remember elasticity of demand. If it's more than one, elastic. Okay, if it's less than one, inelastic. If it's one, unit elastic. So if it's more than one, so here if you look at the ones on the on the left. So these are inelastic demand, where the price changes doesn't affect much in terms of the quantity that is demanded. Okay, so yeah, these items, no matter the price, either it goes up or down, people would buy more or less the same amount. Okay, but for the items on the right here, if the price changes, then people would change their demand for it. Okay, so these are just some examples. Some applications of price elasticity of demand. Okay, for example, in this case, when there is large crop yields, okay, meaning that when this happens, the supply increases. Okay, so when there is large crop yields, price here, quantity here, supply, and it increases to the right. Okay, so when this occurs, let's see if the demand is here. And we assume, let's say this is a inelastic demand. Okay, so inelastic demand. So the price changes because of the higher supply. Okay, so price 1 is here, supply 1 is here, supply 2 is here. Okay, so if it is inelastic, the demand here is inelastic, right? Inelastic demand. So overall, if you look at the total revenue, okay, total revenue test, if you look at the total revenue test, you calculate the revenue here, okay, this part, as compared to the blue part here. Okay, and you can see the result actually in the second situation, the total revenue decreases. Okay, so this is basically would make things worse off for farmers if there is too much supply. Okay, so in order to mitigate this, okay, what the government can do is they can set a floor price. Okay, because the price at P2 is too low. So now what the government can do is you can't sell at P2, maybe sell at P3 here, the purple part here. Okay, so then the farmers can sell at this area, so the purple area, right? So then it's much better. Okay, so there's also the effects, for example, in terms of the situation 2 is the effects of tax on total revenue. So basically, the higher the tax, in the case of inelastic demand, the more total revenue that can be collected. So for example, the tax on cigarettes is tax on cigarettes. Okay, so if the government increase the tax, okay, let's say previously the price of cigarette is 10 and the quantity that is being consumed is 1 million. Now the government increased the tax, and because of that the price increased to 15. Okay, so now because the demand is inelastic, it doesn't change. So it's the same demand. So what happens is that the total revenue can increase. Okay. So similarly, in the third situation, there is a decriminalization of illegal drugs. Okay, so if there is a decriminalization, okay, it will increase the supply of the drugs, but because the when there is decriminalization, it will then increase the price. The price would decline. Okay, so the price would decline, the price would decrease. Okay, but because the demand is inelastic, it would also result to more total revenue. Okay, so these are just some of the applications. I think the details are more I explained more clearly and in more detail in the textbook. Okay. Okay, so before I move to the next part, is there any questions on the price elasticity of demand? Everyone okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, doctor.
Okay. Okay, so let me just continue to price elasticity of supply. Okay, so demand just now looks at the demand curve. The demand curve is this. Okay, so it can be elastic or inelastic, and it can be illustrated on the graph through the different slopes that it has. So demand can look like this, it can look like this, can look like this. Right? So there's different slopes to the demand curve, and this would represent the elasticity. Okay, so the other part, okay, the other part of of this situation is the supply. Okay, so the supply is this. Okay, so the supply can also look like this, can also look like this. Okay, so depending on the elasticity. Okay, so the price elasticity of supply basically looks at seller's responsiveness to price changes. Okay, so just now demand looks at customers' responsiveness to price changes. Now, in this case, is seller's responsiveness to changes. Okay, so in the situation of elastic supply, okay, or sellers or producers, okay, you can say producers as well. Okay. In the case of elastic supply, producers are very responsive to price changes. For inelastic supply, producers are not as responsive. Okay, so you can also calculate the price elasticity of supply through the percentage change in quantity supply over the percentage change in the price. Okay, or you can also use the midpoint formula. Okay, similar to the one just now. Okay, so similarly, if it's larger than 1, then it is elastic. If it's equal to 1, it is unit elastic. If it's less than 1, then it is inelastic. Okay, and you can also find perfectly inelastic supply. Okay, so one of the main factors that would affect price elasticity of supply is time. Okay, so this is the primary determinant of elasticity of supply. Okay, so you imagine, for example, if you are a producer of chicken. Okay, so you have you grow what you call, you are a chicken producer. Okay, and you are selling one chicken, let's say one chicken for 10. Okay, and then the quantity that you are selling, let's say you can sell 1,000 chickens per week. Okay, and for whatever reason in the market, suddenly the price of chicken is 20. Okay, so as a seller, as a producer, of course, if I sell more, I will get more revenue because the price now is 20. But the question is whether or not I can sell more at that certain period. Why? Because I cannot simply increase the quantity that I supply of chickens immediately, because chickens, they need time to grow, right, before I can sell. Right, so in order for me to increase the quantity that I am supplying, it needs some time. So I cannot just simply take some chicken out of nowhere and then sell it in the market. Even though the price have increased, I want to sell more, I need some time to produce. Okay, so similarly for other products as well. If, for example, if you have a factory and the factory can produce 1,000 units of goods. Okay, and then let's say the price increase, the government say, okay, you have to sell. Previously you were selling for 100, but now we want you to sell for 150. Right? But even though the price increase, you cannot simply increase the quantity. You need more time. Maybe hire more people to produce in the factory. Maybe you have to buy more machines in order to increase the quantity. Right? So depending on the time, there is different price elasticity of supply. Okay, so usually in the immediate, okay, so there are three ways of segregating or looking at the time. You can look at it from the immediate, you can look at it from the short run, or from the long run. Okay, so for the immediate period, the the elasticity of supply is usually perfectly inelastic. So this is what the shape of the supply curve, right? So if let's say let's say the price that's being sold is here currently. Okay, the price is 10, and because it is suddenly chicken is popular, okay, maybe because of the Eid celebration and people want to buy chicken last minute. Okay, so what happens is that the demand increases, okay, and the price increases to 20 here. Okay, so but immediately you cannot just simply increase the quantity that you are supplying. Although the demand has increased, your supply doesn't change. Okay, so this is in the immediate market period. Okay, but in the short run, okay, let's say you have more time, the shape of your supply curve changes. Okay, so from previously, the quantity is 1,000 here, price is 10 here. So if you have more time, when the demand increases, now the price increases to 20, but you can also you can adjust the amount of chicken that you can sell. Okay, so now maybe you can sell 1,200. Okay, and then if you have more time, then you maybe you can buy more chicks, or you can breed more chicken, or you can expand your chicken coop so you can have more chickens, and you can expand your business. So in the long run, you can change it much more. Okay, so previously you've been selling for 1,000. Okay, price is 10 here, and the quantity is the price is 20 here. So now, because you have more time, you can sell 1,700 maybe. Okay, so depending on the time, you can adjust your supply. Okay, so immediately it's very hard to adjust, so it is inelastic, so you can't change the shape of the rubber band immediately. But longer in the short run, you can change a bit, but longer in the long run, you can change more. So it is more elastic the more time that you have. Okay, so some examples in terms of the elasticity of supply. For example, the antique goods. Okay, so because the antique goods, you cannot produce more because it's whatever it is. Okay, so you can't simply just produce another type of antique. Okay, so usually here the supply is inelastic. Okay, however, if you sell reproductions of antiques, okay, reproductions of antiques, so it's not an antique in itself, but it's just a copy of the antique. So this is where the supply is more elastic, so you can change the supply. Okay, and then another aspect, when you look at if you follow the price of gold, right? Price of gold actually is quite volatile. Actually, let's try to see. if you look here, this is 1 year. The price of gold is quite volatile. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down, very much. And if you bought gold here in August 2021, it's 1,759. And if you sell it now, you can get quite a profit, right? So basically, this movement of the gold, the argument is that because of the limited supply. Okay, so because the price, the supply is if you look at the illustration, the supply is inelastic. Supply is inelastic. Price is here, quantity is here. Okay, but so what happens is that demand changes. Okay, so the demand changes, so you can go up and down, up and down. Okay, so the supply doesn't change much, okay, in a certain period. So the quantity is limited to this. Okay, the quantity is limited to this area. Okay, but the price can change a lot because the demand is volatile. Okay, but the supply is inelastic. Okay, so this is one way of looking at why the gold prices is volatile. Okay, but if, for example, the supply is inelastic, okay, the supply is inelastic, supply of gold is inelastic, and you have the different changes in the demand for gold. Okay, and if you look at the price range, it's not as volatile as compared to this gap. Okay, so if it's inelastic, the price changes more. If it's elastic, the price changes less. Okay, so this is just some applications of elasticity of supply. Okay. Anyone have any question before we move to the next topic? Can you hear me?
Yes, doctor, we can hear you.
Okay. So another aspect of elasticity is cross elasticity of demand. So this is where we compare two products. Compare the elasticity of two products. Okay, so in this case, the formula here shows product X, the quantity demanded for product X when the price of product Y changes. Okay, so then you can calculate the cross elasticity of demand for X and Y. Okay, so you get the number. So this looks at the responsiveness of one good to the price of the other good. Okay, so the quantity change of X when price of Y changes. Okay, so this is the cross elasticity of demand. Okay, so usually for substitute goods, right? Substitutes are goods that are similar. Okay, for example, here the toothpaste. So we have, for example, if you go to supermarket, usually the popular brands are Colgate and Dali. Okay, so if the price of both are, let's say, same, $5, okay, then it's you can have a preference. For example, you prefer Colgate, but let's say now the price of Dali changed to $3. Okay, so from 5 it changes to $3. Okay, because of that, now the quantity of Colgate being sold will perhaps reduce. Because why? The people that were buying Colgate previously now switch to Dali because of the effects of the price change of Dali, right? So in this case, the quantity of Colgate goes down. Quantity of Colgate goes down because of the change in price of Dali. So if you calculate the elasticity, the cross elasticity, basically it would be positive. okay, meaning that it is elastic. Okay, but for complementary goods, okay, in this case, ink and printer, okay, basically, if the price of ink increase, the quantity of printer would decrease. Okay, so usually this is negative in terms of the results. Okay, but for goods that are independent, usually the elasticity is 0 because it doesn't have any relation to the other product. Okay, so this is the cross elasticity of demand. Okay, so when we look at the applications of cross elasticity of demand, okay, there are various applications. Okay, so for example, when you, as I mentioned, if you are a seller, if you are a producer, if you have a company, you have to consider the cross price elasticity of demand for the product that you are selling. Okay, so when you want to change the price, you also have to consider the price of your competitor. Okay, so that is where the cross price elasticity of demand comes in. Okay, so if you reduce too much, then maybe the competitor may also change, and depending on the elasticity of demand for your product, may cause a price war and may cause your total revenue to reduce. So that's a consideration that you have to make. Okay, so another way is looking at if you are a government, whether you would allow for two companies that sell the similar product to merge with each other, because then it would also affect the prices in the market, and also the depending on the elasticity, the quantity that is being sold in the market. Okay, so this is also another consideration for that utilizes cross elasticity of demand. Okay, so that's cross elasticity of demand. The final part, and not the final part, the next topic is income elasticity of demand. Okay, so this looks at the effects of income towards your demand. Okay, so this basically you can calculate it by looking at the percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in income. Okay, so you can calculate that. And this basically measures the responsiveness of buyers to changes in their income. Okay, so usually for a normal good, the elasticity is positive, meaning to say that the higher the income, the higher the quantity. Okay, but for inferior goods, elasticity is negative. So the higher the income, the lower the quantity that they buy. Okay, so this is inferior goods, for example, instant noodles. The examples that I provide last week, instant noodles. Okay, so you would consume instant noodles when your income is low. Right? For students, sometimes you would consume instant noodles, but when you have the income, you would most likely reduce the quantity that you consume for instant noodles. Right? So that's considered a inferior good. Okay. So if some applications of income elasticity, basically in the case of high income elasticity, when there is a recession or downturn of economy, the more elastic you are, the more affected you are. Okay, or if you have a low elasticity of income, then you are not much affected by the recession. Okay, so if you are low income elasticity, the changes to the goods or the price of goods will not affect your quantity demanded. If you have high income elasticity, the change of price would affect your quantity demanded. Okay, so this is the application. Okay, so this is basically the summary. Okay, in terms of the cross price elasticity of income. Okay, So elasticity and pricing power, basically, when we look at elasticity and its application in economics, right? You can see that some companies would have what we call market power and pricing power, okay, which would allow them to set the price of the product that is for their own best interest. Okay, so in some cases, the company may find it um, uh, that the product that they are selling are inelastic. Therefore, they can increase the price. Okay, no matter how high the price is, people will still buy it. Okay, so this is where we have, you can say that they have the market power and they have the pricing power. Okay, so that company can set the price, people will still buy it. I think currently you can imagine Apple, for example. So although they increase the price, the price of iPhones increase, people will still buy it. Okay, and then whatever new product that they come up with, and although the price is high, because the demand is inelastic, people will still buy it. Okay? Or another situation is where the case of monopoly. Okay, for example, if there's only one supplier of electricity, okay, electricity, or one supplier of water. Okay, so no matter, and when they are monopolizing, so no matter what price they set, people will still utilize their the service that they provide, so electricity and water. So in this case, they also are considered to have market power and pricing power. Okay, but in terms of the different applications, okay, here for example, in the case of different customers and different customers when they purchase a flight ticket. So what happens is that usually business air travelers, people who frequently use aeroplanes for business purposes, they are inelastic in terms of the price. So therefore they are charged, they can be easily charged more, right? But for people who have families, for example, they are usually more sensitive to the price changes, right? So the airline companies will charge a lower price, like, especially for example for children, right? So then it is more elastic to capture the 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 customers in this aspect. Okay, and then there's also the college tuition, okay, or university tuition for people outside of the United States. There's also depending on the elasticity, but in most cases for universities that have higher ranking like Harvard, Oxford, doesn't matter what the price that they set, people will still want to go into the university. So this is the pricing power that they have. Okay, so this is just some examples in terms of the application. Okay, so before I end, is there any questions before we move to the next part? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, no questions. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll try to answer these questions. So I'll call your name. Let's start with Brother Bayu just now. Can you try to answer this question? Just give your, it's an objective question, so you just give your answer. Go through it. So basically the question is a perfectly inelastic demand schedule. Okay, so if you remember the perfectly inelastic demand, so this is This is normal demand, right? Price here, quantity here. But perfectly inelastic, demand would look like this. Okay, so what is the answer? Can you guess? Just guess.
Doctor, the question is number one, a perfectly inelastic demand schedule. Like I have to guess between the two.
The answers are there. You guess A, B, C, D.
Okay.
Objective. So which one is it?
Okay, let me read it first.
Okay. So perfectly inelastic demand. I'm just showing you. This is what it looks like.
Yeah, I think it's D.
Parallel to horizontal axis. So in this case, if we draw this, okay, so this is
vertical.
So this is vertical. This is horizontal. So if it's parallel to horizontal, it looks like this.
Oh, okay. It's B.
Yeah. So if it's parallel to vertical, it looks like this. Okay. So the answer here is B. Okay. Yeah. Perfectly inelastic demand. Okay. Thank you, brother. Let's try another person. Sister Munira. Try answering this question. So there's no calculation, it's just comprehension. Are you there, Sister Munira?
Yes.
Okay. When the percentage change in price, the percentage change in price is greater than the resulting percentage change in quantity demanded, then what is it? A, B, C, D.
D.
Demand is elastic. Why do you say D?
Because if the price changes, the quantity will.
So here in this case, price changes a lot, but quantity doesn't change much.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's Is it?
Can you guess?
Is it? E? Or is it?
Do you say A?
Yes.
Okay. So the answer is actually C. If you look at it, right, for example, the price, this is basically a representation of inelastic demand. Okay, inelastic demand. So for example, price is here, quantity is here. Now the price increase. So let's say here. The quantity doesn't change much, right? But the price increases. So the quantity from Q1 to Q2. P1 here. But if you look at the total revenue, which is basically calculating the size of the squares here, right? And you compare between the two, the blue and the yellow, you can find that actually this increase in price, the increase in price will actually increase the total revenue, because the change in price doesn't change much in terms of the quantity demanded. So they can still maintain a high quantity. For example, if previously people were buying 100, if you increase the price, the quantity doesn't change if it's inelastic, okay, or it only reduces a bit. So in this case, it would increase total revenue. Okay. Yeah, so this is just another example. Let's try another one. Thank you, Sister Munira. This is a calculation. Okay, we have the formula here. Sister Sundus, you want to try to do this? Sister Sundus, are you there? Are you there, Sister Sundus?
Yes, Doctor, I'm there.
Okay, can you attempt to do this? So I can do it together. Okay, so here, this person sells 500 bottles. Okay, so the quantity he sells is 500 when the price is 7. Okay, so now because of the, so this is situation 1. Okay, and then situation 2 is that there is a huge increase in resource price that causes price to rise $9. So now price is $9, but if you only manages to sell 460. Okay, so the question is, what is the price elasticity of demand? Okay, so you can calculate using the midpoint formula here. Okay, so in this case, the change in quantity. Okay, so you look at the change in quantity from 500 minus 460. Okay, so that's the change in quantity over the sum of quantities, 500 times plus 460 over 2. Okay, so you get this part. Okay, and then divide by change in price. Price change is 7 minus 9 over sum of price over 2. Okay, so do you get the answer? Okay, so I think if you calculate, you get the answer, sister? Hello? Are you there?
Yes, Doctor.
Do you get the answer?
Not yet.
Okay, if you calculate, I think you get the answer will be C. Okay, so the answer will be 0.33, which is less than 1. Okay, so this is
0.02.
0.02. Are you sure? So then there's no answer for you to circle here. Okay, so so this is, if you can do the exercise on your own. Okay, you can try again later.
Okay.
Okay. One more, brother Mahmud. Are you there, brother Mahmud?
Yeah. So
Can you answer this question?
maybe I didn't know the Inelastic because I didn't attend. I have problem with my system.
Okay, just try to just guess.
Okay.
Demand is said to be inelastic when an increase in price results in reduction in total revenue. So here for A, price increase results to revenue. For B, price decrease increases total revenue. For C, reduction in price, total revenue. For D, elasticity coefficient
A.
exceeds 1. A. Okay, so the answer is C. Because C, when price decreases, total revenue also decreases. So it goes the same way. So for inelastic, it goes the same way. Okay, so you can review back the notes and also the textbook and also the recording early on later. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so these are just some questions. There are other questions here. You can attempt to do on your own. Okay. Maybe some of it may come during the exam. So it's good to practice and try to understand the concept of elasticity. Okay, before we end, is there any questions? Okay, everyone okay? Or you want to share anything? Okay. Let me just review a few things. So you can find these questions in the slide that I've provided. Yeah, so maybe some of you joined a bit late, but basically I've also provided the textbook here, so you can review the textbook and the concepts. Whatever I share is here, so you can see here. And then there's a course outline. So the topics that I have covered is until here. So maybe next week I'll cover this part, or I'll see whether it's needed, or I can just skip to macroeconomics. Okay, so inshallah, I think depending on because there's 1 week that I didn't manage to teach, but I think maybe this topic can be skipped for the classes. But if you are interested, you can review in the textbook, but I wouldn't cover it in the classes. So maybe I'll cover this one next week. Okay, so we'll go into macroeconomics next week. Okay. Yeah, anything that anyone want to raise? Everyone okay? Okay, so do your best to review the topic of elasticity and try to understand elasticity and get to familiarize with the formula and try to do the questions in the textbook as well. And any in the textbook, you can see the questions at the end of each chapter. Okay. You can see the questions at the end of each chapter and try to do the questions. Okay. If there's nothing else, then we can end the class with tasbih kafara.
Doctor, what we are doing here is it macroeconomy or microeconomy?
Micro.
Micro, okay.
It's the small parts. It's the small parts. But these are fundamental concepts that are related to micro as well. Later, we'll see later.
So, Doctor, last time when you added me as a guest, I was not able, but now I have the IIM Live account.
So you should be able to join them.
Yeah.
Using the live.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can use your live account after this, right?
Okay.
So you can use the link, but you register using your live account. You understand? So yeah, so I'll remove this once you enter with. You see, if you enter with your live account, it will be member. But if you enter as a different account, it will only be guest.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just enter using the link that has been provided.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so if there's nothing else, we can end the class with tasbih kafara in Surah Al-Asr. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wal 'asri innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihat wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Hope you have a Ramadan Mubarak and may Allah accept all our ibadah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam.
Okay, lecturer, I will provide the link via the group.